Time now for the M&A Edge with John Bintz. He's with Valuation Research Corporation. He joins us quite often on our show, and it's always a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, Angie.
So today, we're taking a look at mergers and acquisitions from the acquisition side. So what do people need to know about acquiring companies?
So one of the things they have to do is, in a compliance or regulatory framework, if you do an acquisition, you buy a company, you have to comply with financial reporting and accounting rules. It is called ASC 805, which is the technical term, but it's also known as purchase accounting or purchase price allocation or the opening balance sheet.
What are some of the specifics that go into that?
Sure. So you have to value every asset. So let's say you bought a company for $100 million and $10 million was in real estate. You bought a factory, there's a building, there's land. So you would have to have that real estate appraised so that your opening balance sheet would have $10 million on it. The next thing you'd have to value is the personal property. So the personal property is furniture, fixtures, machinery, equipment. Could be on a factory floor, computers, fixtures, automobiles, airplanes, and let's say that is 20 million. So now you've got 30 million of assets, 10 and 20. Now you have to value the intangible assets. So you might ask, what's an intangible asset? Intangible assets are things like a non-compete agreement. So let's say you bought the company from the Smith family. You don't want them to compete against you, so you sign a non-compete agreement saying that they can't compete for 3 or 5 years down the road. It could be the customer, so you're valuing the customer relationships. It could be intellectual property, software, trademarks, trade names, brand names, anything that's not tangible but is intangible. You also have to value that. So let's say you value 10 million, 20 million, now you've got 50 million of intangible assets. So 50, 20, and 10 is 80 million, and the plug would be goodwill. And that would be, the remainder would be 20 million. So now you've got everything adding up to 100 million.
A couple more questions here, John. So why is this important? And if you skip this process, what's likely to happen?
Yeah, so it's for compliance, regulatory, for the audit. It has to be done within 1 year of an acquisition. And typically, if it's a big enough acquisition, they would hire an outside firm like Valuation Research or another firm to do this work for them. If it's small enough, your auditor, your accounting firm, you might get by on not having to do it if it's real small. But typically, they have an outsourced provider come in and appraise and value these assets.
And are there cases where people actually try to hide maybe what's going on and are not forthcoming? And how do you know if somebody's doing that?
Not really. The auditor, there's several checks and balances, not only from the buyer, but also the seller, as well as accounting and tax professionals that would be a part of the transaction. So everything's pretty above board, and there's not really things that are hidden.
It's all on the books.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Really great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Angie.